It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc, and we have one of our favorite guests with us again today, John Burley. He's real estate expert, educator. He's the most knowledgeable guy I know in the real estate world. John, welcome to the show.
It is awesome to be here again, Ferenc. Super exciting time right now, and loving the markets and all of the excitement. And wow, elections coming up, so it's an interesting time to be alive yet again.
That is a fact. That is a fact. So obviously, we're going to talk a lot about real estate today, folks. So I'm going to encourage you really to stay tuned. So before I forget, you have an event coming up. So
yeah, September 20th through 22nd here in Phoenix, Arizona. You can go to johnburley.com, so JOHNBURLEY.com. There's information there. There's also several free downloads, so help yourself. And if you like what we're talking about today, get some information and learn more about what we do.
So if somebody's interested in attending your event, John, what are they going to learn?
So first of all, I'm a practitioner, not a seminar guy. We kind of always, tongue-in-cheek, we've talked about there's the real world, which is where you and I live, and then there's seminar land, which is where they talk about all kinds of things that are too good to be true, which today, of course, that would be social media, podcast, YouTube videos. It's like, you already know when someone says it's really easy and everybody can do it, best case scenario, they're a fool or a trickster, and there's no nicer way to say it, because It's not really easy and everybody can't do it. Psychologically, intellectually is the challenge. We literally have people who were born with extraordinarily low intellect where, when you and I were children, they were labeled as mentally retarded. I know there's different names now, but when you change the name every year or two to be politically correct, it doesn't work good for the people who are working on a very limited intellect. I have a student of ours in Dallas, Texas, very low intellect, over 600 properties. I was actually talking with this morning, Nick Voyachik, who was born without arms and legs. You can't get much more disabled than this.
Yeah, he's done very well for himself.
He's a decamillionaire on real estate. Amazing guy. He's actually down in Mexico on a 6-week break with his family, enjoying. They have a place down there, and so they're really enjoying it. We were talking about me maybe popping down and going fishing with them because without arms and legs, he's a heck of a fisherman.
Yeah.
And so just the idea is that, psychologically and emotionally what needs to change. If somebody really wants to become a very successful real estate investor, the changes are more internal. They're in their heart, they're in their head, it's their psychology and their emotions. The techniques and the systems, those aren't hard.
Right. Deploying
them successfully are. Because there is no get rich quick. There never has been, there never will be. That's one of the things I like about, with you and your program and the stations you play with. I mean, they get that. I mean, there's certainly things we can do to become a lot more successful and a lot wealthier than most people and stay a lot more informed and take action. At the end of the day, though, it's like everything great. It requires work and effort.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons, and folks that listen to the show know this, I don't bring on a lot of guests. I'm very particular about that. And the reason I invited John, well, we've gotten to know each other personally, but I did attend his workshops. I think I've attended something like 9 days of your trainings, and I had been a real estate investor, had owned 30 properties myself prior, and I learned a lot. And I also then met a number of John's students and various people. Some of them have now become clients of the personal bank
Absolutely.
Idea. And the point is, I tell people this all the time. I hear it all the time too. This is wonderful. This is great. But I always say, when I'm looking at somebody's tax returns and financial statements, it's hard to lie to me.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, folks, I've looked at some of John's clients' tax returns and financial statements, and this is real.
Yeah, it really is. We're actually pretty excited. This last year, we went over, that we know of. There's more that we don't know, but we have over 1,000 what we call Century Club members. And that would be people who have over 100 properties in portfolio as long-term holds. On the low end, depending on the area, that's $45,000 a month net after expenses to the capital investor and to the student. And we have several who are, $150,000 to $250,000 a month of personal income. One lady, Tricia, actually sends out checks for over $600,000 a month to her capital investors. They're very happy, very happy.
Sounds like it.
So we have over 1,000 Century Club members, which is, as you know, I used to do the huge big shows and the international tours and all that, but we only do 4 events a year now. Because my main job at the end of the day is I run a private equity company. I invest in real estate for real. On a for-profit model, not a fee model. So it's extraordinary to me that with some of these companies that are out there teaching 40, 50 weeks a year in 2-3 different cities,
right,
that we have more success stories than they do.
They don't have time.
Well,
Because they're out.
If you're teaching
work.
40, 50 weeks a year, you're not running an investment company for real. When you're successful and wealthy, you don't have more time. In some ways, you have less.
Right.
Because you have more stuff to go wrong.
Right.
What goes wrong for me on a weekly basis would be most people's entire careers. And it's
Exactly.
just to the point where literally we reframed it 30 years ago to, hey, it's just Tuesday morning. Stuff goes wrong.
Right.
It's real estate. Of course things go wrong.
Right. Well, that's why I've been so blessed, too. As you know, I used to speak quite a bit also on the personal bank concept, and then the radio thing came along, and now it's expanded nationwide. It takes so much less time to share on the radio than to travel around the country and speak to groups. Not that I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong.
Oh,
I'm sure you did.
It's
fun.
a ball. It's so much time away from family.
Right.
And for me, it's time away from what my core business is.
Right.
And I have a lot of responsibilities that I take very seriously as the steward of this huge portfolio and all these people's money. I mean, there's literally thousands of people who rely on me to do my job.
Right.
And to do it well. So we're really blessed to do it. The events are a joy to do. It's great to give back. It's great to people be so successful. And we've never bought a list. We've never had to do traditional marketing. It is literally just organic. Well, doing things like I'm doing now with my good friend Ferenc. And how many markets are you in now?
It's over 20.
Yeah, over 20. I mean, you just every time I talk, you got new markets. I'm waiting for you to be the next Rush Limbaugh, and you're well on your way. And it's just it's a joy to teach people. So go to johnburley.com. But a lot going on in real estate right now.
There is. So let's talk about that. So what's going on right now? What should people be aware of?
Well, so understanding real estate is it's segregated out. So real estate is not just real estate. So there's commercial, and there's several sectors within the commercial. There's residential. There's sectors within residential. There's lots of different stuff there. I think one of the ones that's kind of exciting to talk about right now, it's not your home. It's not your neighborhood. It's not your 10 rental properties. But office in particular, commercial in major cities, we just this week had another massive foreclosure. There's off-the-record whispers about the Hilton, because as you know, the Hilton, it was I think it was $650 million. If I'm wrong, over $500 million default. It was by a franchisee, but the Hilton Corporation looked at it and agreed with the franchisee it was non-viable. So I mean, Hilton, what most people consider the premier operators of hotels in the world, determined that they could not make a hotel work in San Francisco. And it was one of their flagship properties.
Right.
As I recall, it was a $650 million loan. It was defaulted. There's apparently been recent conversations with the city of San Francisco, off the record, of course, and I can't divulge the source here, is apparently the city of San Francisco asked them if they could turn it into a homeless shelter. And the franchisee, well, they laughed. And then Hilton Corporate didn't laugh. They said, "Yeah, sure, we'll." And my information was it was a 7-year triple net lease $1 per year. But they did let them know, you do understand, without guests in the hotel, it's almost $100 million to operate it. One of the biggest expenses, obviously, being taxes to the city and county of San Francisco. Which and their first thought was, well, taxes don't matter. We don't have to pay them. It's like they do, and you guys are about to lose all that tax revenue, because currently it looks like the plan by the bank is they're going to let it go for property taxes. They're not going to pay taxes for 5 years and let the city and the state of California, the city and the county, it's a county thing, let the county of San Francisco foreclose it for property taxes, because they literally can't see how to make it work, because it's almost $100 million a year to operate it vacant.
That's crazy.
Just insane. And we just had in Fort Worth.
I saw that one.
We had it, and that went back to the lender. That building, I actually talked to a good friend of mine who's in Dallas, an attorney, and she did say that building comes with a lot of flaws and deferred maintenance and defects. But just a couple months ago, the huge, massive building, it was the biggest at the time, office foreclosure, came out of St. Louis. Building was like $140 million. In 21, it sold in 22 for $4.5 million, and the guy was going to turn it into condos like the politicians say we're going to do with these buildings.
Right.
Two little flaws. First of all, if you're not working downtown anymore, why would you want to buy a building down there and live there? And the second thing is the cost So, like, again, I don't want to pick on San Francisco. I was actually born in San Francisco, but in San Francisco, they wanted low housing. This is about a year ago. It was 1,000 documents, 3 years, and $865,000 in fees and costs before you put a nail into a wall. I mean, it was like, so how can we do low-income housing when we have to pay $865,000 just to begin to build a door?
Right.
So just, we're going to see, and this is sending a lot of scare through the marketplaces. But you're going to see, in my opinion, lots and lots of big office buildings going under. And, look, you need to take the blinders off. This isn't just poorly run democratic cities. I can't be so biased that I only see the good and bad in one party or the other, because obviously I prefer the Republican Party. Most of us, if you own your own business, if you're an entrepreneur, whether you like the people or not, you vote for them because their policies are more conducive and better for you. They want lower taxes and smaller government, which I'm all in favor of.
Right.
But I mean, Dallas-Fort Worth, we're not talking Democrat territory here. We are talking rock solid Republican city, and they've got other buildings, and we've just seen the first few. There is a whole bunch of buildings in line that are years in default, and it's just simply there's no model. And and you can drive down any major city, whether you're in Chicago. I mean, Phoenix doesn't have it, but we're a different type of town. But I mean, most major cities have huge buildings that are completely dark. I mean, they're just sitting there rotting.
And we saw, and then the banks that are holding those loans are in trouble, mostly the smaller regional banks. We saw one fail recently. It was a small one, granted, but they're holding a lot of this commercial paper.
And it's more of a danger sign,
for them.
When you see the smaller banks fail, guys, it's a bigger problem than when the big ones are in stress, because the smaller ones play different rules and they make far less risky loans. If you look at the history, with the deep crash we had in Phoenix, when literally, 19 of the top 20 banks in America should have been shuttered by the rules, and quite frankly, the federal government probably should have shuttered them. But they didn't. Instead, they changed the rules and started attacking the mids and the smalls, who were not in trouble until the rules changed, with those rules not applying to the top banks, of course. And when a well-run regional bank goes under, you need to really turn and look, because those loans generally weren't funny money. They weren't, those were real loans with real equity.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, folks, this is some golden information John's sharing with us. He's with us for the entire show, so I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned. And as always, last real quick, if they want to, your event that's coming up.
Yeah, I'm on all social media, but go to johnburley.com.
Okay, excellent. Stay tuned in the next segment. We're going to share some more. We're going to talk more about residential real estate next, so don't miss it.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc, and we have one of our favorite guests, John Burley, real estate expert, educator, the guy that knows more about real estate than anybody else I know, and that's why I invite him on this show periodically. So we've talked a lot in the first segment about commercial real estate, and that's becoming well known, John, as a real problem. I'm seeing the real residential area is different, but we're seeing a dichotomy. Some states are building, some aren't. What's going on with that?
Well, so the markets are moved primarily on psychology and emotions, which is why we have the crazy run-ups and the crazy crashes. It has a tendency to run up slower than it goes down, because people react more to bad news than good news. And so the main driver is psychology and emotions, not actual numbers. I mean, we were talking about some of the commercial buildings. I mean, it's 8 cents on the dollar in Dallas, and not one person bid. I mean, the bank took it back. They offered it at this massive discount, not one person bid, because right now people are like going, well, there's so much vacant office. There's no solution for it. And we don't want to deal with the government to try and to convert it to condos. And if we're not working downtown, who wants to live downtown? Really, how many people want to live downtown if you don't work downtown?
Right.
And we get that because we spent decades here in Phoenix, and in Phoenix we almost have no downtown. I mean, we are the fourth biggest city in the United States of America, and our downtown looks like there's 500,000 people here. We don't have this huge financial district. We don't have any of it. Just very, very different. So what's happening is there's a lot of fear in the market. And the fear is more so than at any time in our history. And that's just because of the internet and the media. I mean, the media has always been negative. Some of us, we try and remember a golden age of news. Was there really ever a golden age of news? I don't know. I mean,
I think it's more about what you were used to growing up.
What you're used to, yeah. They were kinder about
That's
it.
the good old days to anyone.
The good old days. And I always like to tell people, hey, right now is the good old days. We're living them.
Right.
So we've got a lot of fear going through the marketplace. People are freaked out on interest rates, and this is where you really see, for those of you that have been around for a while, you really see the difference. People who are new to sharing information, educating, teaching, or being an expert are all freaked about interest rates, where veterans are like going, well, historically, these rates are low. The 3%, 2.5%, 4%, that was a little blip window, and it never should have gone that low to start with. That was an over-adjust by the feds.
I share the same thought because, we keep hearing, Wall Street keeps saying, oh, the rate cuts are going to happen. And I've been saying for over a year now, just listen to the Federal Reserve. What has their mantra been? Higher for longer.
Yeah.
They're the ones that make the decision. And as I say all the time, I understand you're a young Wall Street stock jockey, whatever. I understand what Wall Street wants. They want lower interest rates because it's good for the business. It's good for stock market. But it's not what the decision makers, the Fed, is saying.
Right. And what they're doing, obviously, look, they're doing a good job. They're trying to do a reframe and a lobbying effort to get the Feds to give them what they want. And the really great knowledge people that I know and the really high-end investors that I know, we're all like going, well, kid, why don't you learn how to invest in a different marketplace? I mean, if you can only make money when it's 3%, you were dead the day you started. You just didn't know it till now.
Well, last week, for example, I was had lunch. I was talking to the primary buyer for a major insurance company. So this is a multi-billion-dollar institutional investor, and his statement was about the stock market to me last week. We are super defensive.
Yeah, super defensive. If you don't know what a short is, figure that out really quick because you want to be ready. Because the difference is now, the reactions are faster. So what before would be, wow, news comes out, a 4 or 5% downturn in a day, 10, 15% in a week. That used to be pretty massive. And today, I mean, that's like we're just one set of bad news away from that happening.
Other statement about interest rates, I found was interesting. He says, not only do we think that there's going to be no interest rate cuts for the rest of 2024, maybe, and he says, everybody I know in my space, these are large institutional investors, feel the same way. And he says it's likely may not happen in 25.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I know and again, it's because they wanted it,
right? And
because unfortunately for many of them, they needed it. We need the rates to be cut, so we're going to say they're going to cut the rates because there is an election and it's happened before, so it's going to happen before. It's like, no, the Biden administration was never leaning towards lowering those rates. They were never looking at doing that. Right or wrong is irrelevant. It is what it is.
Right.
And it's like, just because you want the rates to go down and wishful thinking, that's not good. You need to take off the blinders and live in the real world and reality. The reality is we've got these rates, and I don't see them coming down at any time of any significance. I mean, could we get a half a point or something? Sure. Doubtful. At this point, doubtful.
They're saying no. They don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, 6 months ago.
Maybe.
Maybe, but today, no.
The institutional investors don't see it.
Yeah, no, and they, they understand that markets are a little high. And there are different opinions on it, obviously, but it's like going, we don't want to be over leveraging into a high market. We want more equity than before, and we're going to keep the rates where they're at. Now, on the residential side, there's some really, really cool stuff out there. So if you're out there right now and you want to get creative, you're probably listening to the radio driving your car, but you can still raise your hand. So just pop your hand up if you want to get creative, because there is stuff we can do. The reality is, right now, what we've been buying, the majority of what we've been buying on market. So there's off market, really deep off market. But the deep off market deals, Ferenc, as most of those are 6 months to 5 years of direct marketing before we got a deal.
Right.
We were like their backup plan for years, and then they called us. Off market is, the signage and stuff you see and all that stuff, which some of it works, but not that great. Those signs have been around. The yellow sign with the black writing, the corrugated plastic. I was actually the first guy in the world to use those signs.
You started that.
I started that. Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
If it helps, for 21 years now, since '03, I've been told everybody don't use that sign anymore, because what that sign says is you're a low-life, rip-off, scumbucket real estate investor, and even real estate investors think that's what that sign means.
I saw one this morning driving into the studio.
And that's your thought, yeah. They work, but not like the old days. One of the things that we have been doing is we have been doing a lot of deals every month. And this is personally my company, what we're doing is we're assuming or taking over what's called subject to existing financing. And we just recently, it was one deal my daughter was on 1.75%, 30-year fixed rate,
Wow.
3-year loan. And she got that loan. So we've been doing, and that's the lowest we've done. Most of the ones we've been doing have been 2.5 to 3.5. And just taking over the loans legally, ethically, and morally. If you're in Arizona, you got to really dot I's and cross T's. Some states are loosey-goosey, others aren't. There's a lot of rules to follow, which we will be teaching at the September event. And
Right.
most importantly, we'll be telling you exactly what never to do, which unfortunately is the common message that people are given. What they're told to do, they should never do. But you can actually take control of those existing loans. Now, it limits your choices because it's like, I don't get to pick my house first and then go get financing. I'm picking the financing first and then seeing if the house will be acceptable. Of course, as an investor, everything doesn't need to be perfect exactly like I want it because I'm never going to live in it. And I don't buy, again, guys, I've been doing this for over 40 years. I buy Class B properties. I buy nice homes in nice neighborhoods, good working class. Literally, I don't understand why politicians don't say this stuff anymore because it's what we all grew up with, decent, God-fearing, hard-working Americans.
Blue collar.
Blue collar.
Yep.
The heart and soul. And I do miss that most politicians today, even the ones that are Christian, are afraid to say, God bless America. I mean, the President of the United States right now is a Christian. And he still won't say, God bless America anymore. Not a regular thing. He still occasionally will do it. He has said an occasional prayer in a tragedy, but it's like, you and I remember just a few short years ago, every single politician, even if they never had any belief whatsoever, was all, God bless America, God bless America.
They all had an American flag on.
An American flag always.
Now it's Ukrainian flags and other stuff.
Right. I
don't get it.
There's lots of that stuff that I support. I wish them well and I pray for them. But, if I'm wearing a collar pin with a flag on, it'd be the American flag always. And I will.
If you're a representative for America, you would think that makes sense.
You would think they do. And as you know, you've been to several of my events. I really do. People go, does he really do this? Yeah, I really open with a prayer and I close with a blessing upon the people in the room. And I always have and I always will. And internationally, I had promoters who used to put it in my contract. I couldn't. It's like, come on, I'm coming and and you want me here and you're paying me a boatload of money, but I won't agree to that clause ever. But they would try and slip it in the contract, figuring, well, John honors his word. So if he signs it, he'll not do it. And if it had slipped by, I still would have said the prayer.
There you go. Well, that's why I always finish the show off with "In God We Trust." We're current events, money-focused show, and and it occurred to me, I was looking at a quarter one day, and I was like, oh, well, it's right there, on our coins. And John, this one really got me. So maybe it was a State of the Union a couple of them ago, and it struck me. I was watching him speak, and right above him, in like huge block letters in granite, in the House of Representatives, "In God We Trust."
It's on every major building in D.C.
Yep.
Every single one of them, every major building in the United States has either scripture or "In God We Trust" or something to that effect on every single building.
Absolutely.
And look, does America have problems? Of course. Does America have problems regardless who is president? Of course. Has America always had problems? Yes. With that said, we're a family. And with all our dysfunction, we are by far the most functional family on the street. This is it. And
we're trying to keep it that way.
And we're trying to keep it. And I think one of the hugest things that we did is we are the only nation in the history of the world that had the courage to put "In God We Trust" on our money. And I think that has had a material benefit compared to all the other countries during our existence. Not even close who's been number one the whole time. And people go like, oh, well, so-and-so's better now or so-and-so's better. And there's always, my whole lifetime, some currency was going to replace the dollar. It was a yen, and then it was a basket, and then it was the euro, and now it's the Chinese. It's like, please, really?
The encouraging part of all that, John, is that in tough times, crisis, people do turn back to spiritual things in God and stuff like that. And we're starting to see a revival of that, and that's encouraging.
Absolutely, and I think God intervenes so often that we have no clue how many times He takes us out of the fryer and saves us. Sometimes He lets us receive the results of our actions. The 8 crash. That was just a result of greed by people across the board, from Wall Street to mom and daddy buying 5 houses, all negative cash flowed, and leveraging the stock market.
Yep.
And He let us face some of the consequences. But during those times, people turned back to their source. They turned back to their version of God. They go back into that mode where they are better human beings, and they come back bigger and better and stronger.
And they learn some valuable lessons.
We
don't learn from our successes. I say that all the time.
Oh, I wish we did.
I wish we did. I used to start on my workshops. I said, if anybody ever tells you they did nothing wrong, then they're either one of 2 things. They've never done anything, or they're lying.
Yeah, they're a fool or a liar. There ain't no any other choices. Yeah.
I hate to cut this line off, but we're coming up on a hard break. But it's awesome just kind of sharing a little faith ideas with you, John. Folks, stay tuned in the next segment. Don't miss it. We'll talk about some more about real estate, I promise, and anything else that comes up that's important. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc, and we're on with one of our favorite guests, John Burley, and again, real estate educator, investor. Again, the guy that knows more about real estate than anybody I know. And that's saying something, because I deal with a lot of real estate investors, John, as you know.
Yeah, you do.
A lot of them. Anyway, we got on a tangent in the last segment, but I think it was very valuable stuff we were talking about. We started kind of down a path. One of the things is that I know driving real estate prices up, particularly single-family residences, is a lack of inventory. I've been reading and seeing some things where some of the states like Texas and Florida, they were building, and now they're starting to have a little bit of an overage, which is actually good if you're going to buy. And then other states, more of the blue states that have more restrictions or more rules, they're struggling. So that's just creating a dichotomy. So if somebody's looking to buy or maybe invest, what would you recommend?
I mean, you've got Florida, which is an exception because it is a coastal state, obviously. We think of the West Coast, East Coast, not the South Coast. West Coast, East Coast, look, they've always been more expensive. You're on a coast, your major cities, in the modern world, although it's not that much different. I mean, there's a reason why in 1974, California passed a Prop 13, so the property taxes didn't go up as long as you didn't move, because they were litigating to where it's like, in 74, your property taxes are $8,000 or $10,000 a year on a house you paid $40,000 for 25 years ago. So the cost of living has always been much higher. If you live in most major cities, Phoenix is just an aberration to that, but if you live in most major cities, and you're a regular person, I mean, you're living 30 minutes to 2 hours plus outside of downtown. That's the real world. That's just reality, and that's across the world. So if you're in a lower populated state, if you want to be a real estate investor, look, I've always said just invest where you live, figure out the rules and the laws, and deal with them. With that said, I moved from California to Arizona in 1989, in part because of the cost of doing business there, which was small compared to now, and they were already not property owner and pro-business. There had been a big shift, big shift.
So like you're saying, it's different. I get a lot of people that I see this where they'll invest, maybe have some success or not, and then they start looking at investing here and there and elsewhere. It seems like it's always better if you're investing local with real estate.
Yeah, I mean, the first question, so if you've ever owned a rental property, And if something went wrong, which if you've owned it for a while, something went wrong, it's real estate. It's the real world. You're dealing with human beings. It's a piece of property. Little stuff goes wrong. It's just how you keep that in perspective, how you learn to control the cost. If the house is an hour across town, it's a pain in the rear end to go. And, the God bless them, and I mean that because they're right now about the same as the media for the most part, is these influencers and these social media people and these YouTubers, they make it sound like, just go buy a house. Oh, you're in California and it's super expensive. Oh, just buy a house in Memphis. What could go wrong? Well, first of all, you've obviously never been to Memphis. No offense. Or any major city, where half the town is crumbling, literally. And it's what could go wrong. Well, if you have problems taking care of your rental half hour, an hour away, and you can't get a good property manager a half hour, hour away, why do you think 2,000 miles away is somehow going to be better? Let me help you out. It will be a lot worse. We have portfolios in 12 different states and several different cities. And I mean, we know what we're doing, and I have my own boots on the ground. And I still know that if I'm in North Carolina, I'm looking at an 18 to 20% slippage in net income versus my corporate headquarters and my corporate location here in Phoenix. It just is.
That's interesting.
Well, I'm not there.
Right.
My senior management team is not there. And if you think that doesn't matter, that's all it's there. And when we're doing property managers, the problem is most property managers are failed salespeople. In America, there are different models, different countries. In America, on residential real estate, not a whole lot of people went to school to get their license and pass that test to be a property manager. They became a property manager 2 to 5 years later when they couldn't make any commissions and feed their families. So out of desperation, it's like, I'll do property management. It's something. But they're the face of your company. They're your general manager. They're the president of your company. And if you own one rental property, it's a company. You may not think it is, but it is. And so you just hired a failed salesperson to run your company. Well, in the real world, if you hired a failed salesperson to run your insurance agency, if you hire a failed salesperson to run your radio show, you're probably not going to do very good.
It won't last.
Yeah. So the real estate today, right now, we've got some amazing residential real estate opportunities. You need to be investing in an area where the prices are realistic to pencil. Meaning the numbers have to work. So obviously, if I'm in downtown San Jose, numbers haven't worked in downtown San Jose for 50 or 60 years. Why are they work today for you? We had this little window at 3% interest rates, and even there in San Jose, they didn't work. So you need to look at, what is realistic rental income, what is realistic debt service, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, HOA if you have it. Most of the neighborhoods we're investing in don't have an HOA. If they were built in the last 10, 15 years, they do, because now, even if it's just a $20 or a $40 or $50 a month HOA doing nothing but a little bit of common area, most neighborhoods today in the last 15 years have some form of HOA cost. It's a moneymaker for the builder. So they add it in. It's just looking at those numbers. And we are finding consistently deals that are making $600 a month on several different places all across the country. And that's net after real expenses in the bank. When we do the subject to or the assumption of existing loans, then we're back to where we were a couple years ago, where we're making $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 a month. And those are real numbers, folks. And if you don't believe them, come to the event in September.
There you go. Now you have to have some more money to put down probably on the assumables or the subjects.
So the assumables and the subject to is we're basically looking at 10 to 25% down.
Okay.
In some cases, it's better than a normal investor loan. Normal investor loans are 20% down. Most of these, we're taking over an FHA, a VA. Or another government loan, the government insured loan, because that's the lower rates. We work for them. We have very specific marketing strategies, as you know, that we teach at the event of exactly how to find them. We really focus on raising the money first and having the money to do them, even if they're just 20,000, 50,000, 70,000, 30,000 entries. And then we just focus on, the long term, the cash flow number, and making those numbers just work. And as you know, we're very unique. I come out of Wall Street. I literally was the first guy in America to do a for-profit private equity company in single-family homes. We all knew single-family homes made more money than commercial. Commercial was just easier to buy. And if you work for a fee, way easier to buy a $100 million building than to go out and find 1,000 houses. It's way easier. And if you're working for a fee, the profit, people go to these movies like Wolf of Wall Street. Are they real, John? Oh, no. They tamed that down so much it's beyond comprehension. But a for-profit guy, which was who I am, only 2% of the houses are for-profit. We were the first single-family house out. For-profit, we only get paid my company if we earn money. So it's not surprising that 35 years in, with 2008 every year, we've been profitable every single year because I only make money on profits. I'm not like a Wall Street company where I charge you fees whether it goes up or down, and I get paid no matter what.
And I know John well enough. He likes to make money consistently.
Yes. Yeah, I do.
You can count on that.
Ferenc, I like to make money more than I like to do a radio show, podcast, or a seminar.
You do.
Yeah, I love it, and I found and I was blessed. I moved around different equities for a while when I was younger, but I really settled in at a very young age to what was my calling. And then, unlike so many people that I know and that we know mutual friends, when I found my calling, I stayed with it for the rest of my life. So,
Right.
40 years later, here
rare.
I am.
That's rare. Yeah, people are shocked. I tell them this is my 25th year doing what I do.
Oh, and you just crush it. I mean, I spent some time in your business, never had the success you had, and you just crush it. You're amazing, and you crush it because you provide such phenomenal value to your clients.
Well, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
By the way, your next event coming up is September 20 through 22nd.
Yep.
How do they contact you for more information?
JohnBurley.com, JohnBurley.com. You can also reach out to me on, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media. We're on that. And unlike a lot of places, it won't be an 18-year-old kid. It may be a couple days, but if you reach out to me, and I'm serious right now, listener, if you've got a challenge or a problem or an opportunity or just something you're not sure what to do with, you can reach out to me on social media, and it may be a day or two, but I will personally reach back to you. I've always enjoyed that connection. It's very important to me, and it's what we do. Because I understand there are a lot of people out there that, a situation financially may appear overwhelming to you, and it is. And with that said, there are people such as myself who have different skill sets, different belief systems, and different experience to what is World War II nightmare worst case scenario for you may not be for someone who's a very, very high end practitioner.
For you, it might be Tuesday.
Just Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
So not only somebody's interested in real estate investing, but somebody who has done some investing or run into a challenge, like you said, you could definitely help them out. And, and this event could benefit them too.
Oh, absolutely. At our events, they're kind of the opposite of most events. Most events I go to, most people in the room are stone cold broke, and they're not looking for education or training. They are literally working for Jesus Christ to walk in the room and perform a miracle. I'm not in that business. Right. I'm good, but I'm not Jesus Christ, not even kinda.
Yeah.
And so, most of the people that are at our events, they're successful. A large number of them have capital to deploy. They're looking to deploy it smarter and better. And then they're looking to, rather than just trying to do capital gains, it's like, wow, I want that cash flow, which is what we're based on. I mean, I was actually talking with Sharon Lecter, who was Robert Kiyosaki's partner for decades. We had lunch last week, and she's going like, John, I don't know what they're doing, but on your tombstone, they should put cash flow. Yeah. Because she goes, I've never known anybody in my life who generated cash flow, and that's all you focused on for so many decades. It's just the income stream. Because to me, cash flow was freedom. Mm-hmm. Cash flow means if I've got money coming every month that exceeds my expenses, I now have choices.
Right.
Where if I just get a big lump sum of money, I'm no different than any other human being. That money gets spent.
Right.
And so to me, it was always just, having the cash flow to have the freedom. Most of my brothers and sisters who became real estate investors, they forget what they were doing. They didn't become a real estate investor to get a new job. They became a real estate investor to get free. And so about 40% of the room, they got off track, and they've done real estate deals, but they did the wrong type of deals. They're in Class C neighborhoods, or they're doing short-term transactions, which can make you money with risk and a lot of work, but there's no future. There's no long-term.
They quit one job to create
to get
another
a new
one.
job, and
Right.
not even aware that the new job has more risk than the last job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you,
And I do the same thing with money all the time, because my big focus is get cash flow for your money even after you spend it. Why not? That's what banks do.
Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, and
Yeah.
doing the spread, and
Yeah.
that's all we've ever done is borrow money at one rate and place it at another rate.
Yeah.
And make that spread, and then increase the value of the property significantly, which we do, and we teach you how to do that.
Awesome. Well, folks, we got one more segment with John, so I strongly encourage you to stay tuned. If you want to attend his event or want more information on September 20 through 22, how do they get a hold of you?
JohnBurley.com.
Awesome. Stay tuned next segment. Don't miss it.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc, and we have one of our favorite guests with us again, John Burley, real estate educator, investor. Like I've said several times, the smartest guy in real estate that I know. He's probably the smartest guy in real estate you'll ever meet. And I just really encourage you to contact him if you want more information. I know you have an event coming up, John, in September 20 through 22nd.
Yeah, go to johnburley.com. You can also follow me or ask me questions on any of the social media that's out there. Look forward to answering questions and me more. We've had many of your listeners come to our events and had great success following it.
Yes, we have. And folks, also, I can vouch as because they're my clients. I'm looking at tax returns and financial statements. They're not lying when they're making money, so it's hard to do that. So
yeah, I know years and years ago, a very high-end CPA that we worked with for a quarter century now. She was like, when she first started working, she's like going, yeah, you told me what you made. And she's like, just a couple years later, she goes, just, I didn't believe you at all because people tell me all the time and then I see their tax returns. And she told me factually, without divulging any confidence, almost none of her clients make over 10% return on their investment money ever.
I talked to
yet alone long term.
Can say the same thing. 25 years being in the financial business. I look at IRA statements, financial statements, tax returns on a daily basis. I had a gal, I love this story. So it was a few years ago. She was swearing up and down she was making 30% a year on her real estate, 30% a year. And I said, I don't believe you. And she adamantly was saying, I'd challenge her. I said, send me your tax returns. Let's look at what you've done. When we went all through the numbers, she was averaging 5.
Yeah. It's just, the poster child for delusion 101.
Right.
And the industry gets hyped so much that people, buy into the hype. But, it's a business. There's nuts and bolts. There's rules you need to follow. There's no shortcuts that you can take. The only real shortcut, a time saver, would be to properly educate and then deploy properly.
Right.
And we designed a very unique model. We were talking about it just earlier.
So I was going to say is, there's a lot of real estate investor models out there and all, but you're kind of known for the Burley model, they call it. So what is the Burley model? Yeah,
so the Burley model, what I did is I looked at, the note business, which you get an income stream without having to have real estate. A lot of pluses. I looked at, the real estate model as far as the long-term growth and paying down debt. A lot of pluses, a lot of negatives. I looked at, the standard rental market. Rentals are amazing. The only problem with rentals is tenants. It just is. I mean, having to manage that. I mean, I used to joke, man, if there wasn't tenants, I'd own a whole bunch more rental properties. And then what we did is we devised a model. First and foremost, the model is designed around the client wins. So first and foremost, I was good friends, as you know, with Zig Ziglar, which to me was just a shining beacon in the whole education world that existed. And, there's hundreds of Zigisms. My favorite was, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything they want. So unlike most real estate investors who are just trying to make a buck for themselves, mine was like, look, our client is the long-term resident. We don't even call them tenants because, in my opinion, in the last 20, 25 years, that's a demeaning term, meant in a demeaning way by most people who say it. So they're residents, they're owners. And so what we did, the first thing we did is like, look, let's change it from a rental to an ownership. So we provide owner financing, 10 to 30 years. There's 2 different ways we do it. We'll just explain in great detail in September. And if you got a burning question before then, just reach out to me. And so they own the home. The moment we changed it from a rental to an ownership, we changed everything. First of all, the basic maintenance is now theirs. If your kid flushes a duct down your toilet, then you call your plumber to fix your toilet. Don't call me. I'm not your landlord.
Right.
And so we get a higher income stream. We dramatically reduce expenses. And so the Burley model was around giving home ownership. And myself and my graduates throughout the world, it is estimated extraordinarily conservatively that about 5 years ago, we passed 1 million families own a home free and clear with the deed from our model. Because it was designed around giving home ownership. And the government and the banks have always given lip service to this, but the reality in America, the land of opportunity, and we have one of the best home ownerships rates there is, about 35% of Americans don't own a home. And of those 35% that don't, 75% want to. Now, obviously, when you're interviewed on TV, you're like, I didn't want my own home because we chose to rent. I mean, you're not going to say, hey, I don't own my own home because I can't save a down payment and I screwed up my FICO score. Okay, most people who don't own, 75% that don't own a home, would like to own a home. And so we provide that huge gap for 35% of the population don't own, 75% of the likes. We're talking 23% of the country is our client. And we're giving them the American dream, their home. So first thing is that. The next thing we did is like, look, I live in the real world. Real world, man. It takes money to do real estate. If you think you can do real estate, no money down, no credit, yada, 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 you can. And I've done over 600 transactions that were no money down, low down, no credit. And that is a small amount of the deals I've done. Because most deals, it's real estate, requires money. I think the question is like, yeah, you can do real estate without money down. I think the really smart question would be, why would you even try?
Right.
When it's so easy to raise money.
When I used to go travel the country and speak, and I spoke to so many investor groups, and a lot of them were real estate investor groups. And I remember there was a couple I ran into that they really hammered the whole idea of you can invest in real estate without money, which attracted everybody who had no money, and nobody was doing anything.
Yeah, a bunch of broke people, and then, and they put the example up of the one guy who got lucky 10 years ago.
Right.
I love now when you go to some of these events and they're putting up pictures of checks. It's like, hey, have you done a closing in the last 20 years? They don't send you checks anymore. You get a wire. Right. So the moment you're putting a copy of a check on a PowerPoint presentation, I'm really questioning the validity of your presentation because you don't get checks anymore. We had one that cashed out about 2 years ago in a little town south of Montgomery, Alabama, from a little teeny closing company, and the lady actually mailed us a check.
Wow.
Didn't even FedEx, mailed it, snail mail, a check for like $40,000. Like, okay. But everybody else just wires the money.
Right.
So the first thing we do, we provide home ownership. Second thing is we go out and raise the money. When we raise the money, myself or my students, we receive a $10,000 placement fee. We teach you all the details, exactly how to do it, teach you the exact conversation. And the idea was, look, I need to take the handcuffs off. I need to stop being limited by the money I can raise, by the money I have myself, or the deals I can get that are low down. And they're out there. And I teach you how to do them, but they're few and far between. And it's 2024. It's not 1970. So first of all, when the houses were, low down payment, they also only cost $50,000.
Right.
$100,000, and it's not anymore. I mean, it's like so much of what's taught literally is like from the 50s to 70s. It doesn't work anymore. So what we do is like, look, rather than argue about it, let's just solve the problem. So we teach you, and the idea for most people is like, look, we're going to show you how to, as fast as you possibly can, get at least $1 million to deploy. And I ask everybody, if you had $1 million, could you go buy real estate tomorrow? And they're all like, yeah, I wouldn't be hard. Right. I mean, if you had $1 million, you could go find a reasonable deal. Your first deal is not going to be the deal of your lifetime. That comes a little later. But you could go raise it. So instead of trying to look for real estate without money, why don't we just get the money first? And so we teach you exactly the sources, where to go about it, the exact talk, all the rules, all the regs, dot your I's, cross your T's. I'm a huge compliance guy.
Right.
And raise the money first, then provide home ownership, and then your capital investor and you receive really great checks every single month with a real double-digit rate of return for real that your accountant will verify.
There you go.
Because that's all that counts. I do a different set of books than, what I show the government is like, oh, so you're a criminal. Okay. It's like not how you do business, not in the real world.
No. That's awesome. So again, if you wanted to learn more about how to do this or attend your event on September 20 through 22, how do they contact you?
Yeah, go to johnburley.com, JOHNBURLEY.com. We also have got up-to-date, real-world, modern, today knowledge. There's several downloads available for you. Mm-hmm. So you can download, how to become debt-free. You can download how to raise money and what the talking points are. You can download some stuff on real estate. There's a lot of modules that are there for you. And just download them and get them, and then come to the event. We'd love to see you.
Awesome. Last question I think we'll ask, we got a couple more minutes. What do you foresee? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to this, but what do you think is going to happen down the road? next year, 2, 3 for real estate? Where are we headed? Lots changed.
Yeah, lots changing, and will continue. So the first thing, nobody knows. Anybody who says they know is a liar, and they're usually selling you something.
Right.
So
I'm asking for your educated guess.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Right.
With that said, based on doing this for a long, long time, are we set up right now for a huge downturn? Absolutely not in residential real estate, not even vaguely. The residential and the commercial have nothing to do with each other in this regard. We're looking like nothing like 2008. 2008, people were over leveraged, underwater, negative cash flow. Today, they're plenty of equity, plenty of skin in the game, actually signed and qualified for the loans for real, own 4 houses instead of 20 houses, and every one of them, because they bought in an era where interest rates were reasonable, which they still are today, they're all positive cash flow if they're buying in the good market. So we have none of this going on. Wall Street moved out of being the bad debt buyer to owning the real estate free and clear. So in the moment, and Wall Street only owns 4% of the residential real estate. Like, oh, Wall Street bought up America. No, they didn't. It's just crud. 65% of the homes are owner-occupied. Mom and dad live in them. Grandma and grandpa. You.
Okay.
That's 65%. So obviously Wall Street doesn't own it all. They own 4%. The average contrary to what the government and some of the big media like to portray, most rental properties are owned by someone who has less than 20 properties. It's mom and pop. And that's always been the heart and soul of the real estate investment. And they went into that rather than mutual funds in the stock market because it was more consistent long term. So I think most markets right now are in a position where they're going to continue as they are. Some markets are just kind of going sideways. Mm-hmm. Some markets are doing a slow creep down just because the valuations versus the debt service are just out of whack. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to sell your property and you're in a very overpriced area, you're probably going to take a little haircut, but it's all profit. You're just making less money.
Right.
If you're in an area, and there's not many of them right now, if you're in an area that's sliding down and there's nothing crashing, there's some that are in very slow, and I'm talking sub 5% depreciation. You're just looking at more of the same. The wild card now is, look, if we entered a war, if there was a terrorist attack, if there was a stock market or another, significant downturn, I'm talking 10, 15% in a week. Mm-hmm. Real estate's slow motion. You have longer to react, which is what I love. And I love about real estate is like, even if the markets drop, as long as I'm cash flowing, who cares?
Right.
I mean, so 8 to 12 was my portfolio worth less. Yeah, and those were also the 5 best years we ever had because we bought like crazy. But most of my residents, because it was their own home and they weren't underwater, they did nothing but stay home and pay. They just paid. So we have no lineup for a great downturn in the residential markets. We don't technically have a housing shortage because it's not like people are on the street. We have people who want a lot nicer houses than they have. So I think we're looking at more of the same. I don't think there's interest rate relief coming. And there's just some really great, solid, really spectacular numbers out there for people who get educated and learn what they're doing.
Last time, how do they contact you, John?
JohnBurley.com, JohnBurley.com. You can find out about our future events, and you can get free downloads. Also, follow me on any of the social media, and feel free to reach out and ask me questions.
John, awesome to have you on the show as always. Thank you. And I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned to next week's show. As always, we'll have great information. And as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
In God we trust. Amen. Thank you.
Listen Tuesdays at noon and Saturdays at 1 to the Your Personal Bank Show for more information. Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Some products discussed may have limitations and not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may change. For current rates, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. Again, that's 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com.